Ever since Disney announced the remake of The Lion King, everyone can't help but reminisce about the animated film that shaped our childhoods and taught us all about the circle of life. With an all-star cast, the return of James Earl Jones as Mufasa, and some awesome CGI, fans are super hyped, possibly more so than any other recent Disney remake. But with all that hype, it's got many people thinking about the original film, and specifically theories that they never considered. Although we've already done a video on the dark theories about The Lion King, we feel like we've only scratched the surface. In fact, some of the theories still out there are even crazier than the ones we initially talked about.
Everything you see exists together in a delicate balance.
Hey, what's going on? This is Brad with Wicked Binge. Be prepared, because these are crazy theories about The Lion King that will blow your mind. Let's get started. So when ya gonna hit subscribe, bruh? Thank you.
A monkey's uncle.
The Lion King world mirrors the USSR. We're gonna start off with a little history lesson. We're kicking things off with a theory shared by Reddit user Hossain that, well, dives a little deeper into political history than the average viewer would expect.
Checking in with the morning report.
Fire away.
Still, when it's broken down and you really start looking at the evidence, it all kind of makes a lot of sense. And given The Lion King uses the backdrop of Shakespeare's Hamlet for the story, it isn't out of the realm of possibility that history or politics didn't have a bit of influence as well.
Hey, Uncle Scar, when I'm king, what'll that make you?
This theory establishes a rather interesting yet unexpected parallel between The Lion King and, you guessed it, the USSR, the Soviet Union. Now, in order to really understand this theory, we need to look at the Soviet Union from the standpoint of what it has always been known for historically, its political views and style of governance. For nearly 70 years, the one-party state was governed by a quasi-communist socialist ruling party. Now, without getting into the complexities of their governance and the implications that it had with the United States, looking at it from a purely structural point of view, you can clearly see the similarities between the state and the world of The Lion King. In the initial phase of the movie, we can see that the beginning mimics the pre-revolutionary phase of Russia, specifically just leading up to the forced abdication of St. Nicholas the Passion Bearer in 1917.
Long live the king.
Mufasa takes up the role as Tsar, as the ruling leader, preaching to the animals of the kingdom that everything is perfect, when in fact, everything is a lie. The animals aren't happy with Mufasa's governance, but must put up with them in order to keep peace and have access to basic needs like food and water. These animals represent the middle-class citizens who weren't in favor of St. Nicholas's ruling style, but kept quiet to avoid any conflict. As we pointed out in the previous video, the Circle of Life seems, in retrospect, like a piece of musical propaganda that teaches animals to love their place in a hierarchy that considers them dinner for those at the top.
When we die, our bodies become the grass.
In the Circle of Life, you also see the rise of proletariats, who do not have access to the kinds of services and needs that others in society have. We're talking about the hyenas. That was, of course, until Scar came along, joined forces with the hyenas, and overthrew Mufasa from the throne. Scar granted the proletariats access to things like water, signaling the gradual shift that the Soviet Union themselves went through in Marxism-Leninism in the late 1920s and 1930s. So, where does that leave Simba? Well, Simba's return symbolizes the end of socialism, as well as a reintroduction of a capitalist way of thinking. In other words, the progression of the state from communism to capitalism. Or then again, more likely is just a return to a traditional monarchy. After all, he is the king. Although this may seem shocking, this credible theory does portray the Lion King in a very different light, one that you probably wouldn't have even considered. There are holes in the theory, however. The most obvious being that Scar and the hyenas are portrayed with outright fascist imagery in his musical number, as opposed to that of communist, but a lot of the subtext remains. The Lion King is about British imperialism. Not straying too far from the political innuendos that the Lion King has to offer, another plausible theory which has surfaced actually looks at the movie from a similar angle. The only difference is that this time, it's the British who are in the hot seat. According to this theory, the film actually mirrors the colonization of Africa by the British. As we know, the British are historically known for colonizing several nations throughout the world. In the process of doing so, they plundered land, subjugated them to what they considered to be morally just ways of life, and left irreversible effects on culture. One such place is Africa, and this is the brunt of this theory. Scar, along with his team of hyenas, represent British colonist imperialists who forcefully entered African countries and forced the natives to adhere to their way of governance.
We shall rise to greet the dawning of a new era.
But that's not all. The similarities go deeper, especially when you look at the lives of Timon and Pumbaa, who literally lost everything they had. They are microcosms of the hundreds and thousands who, too, lost it all as a result of British colonialism.
Kid, what's eating you?
Nothing. He's at the top of the food chain.
This theory takes a rather poignant look at the movie from a cultural and historical point of view, echoing the notions of renouncing imperialist actions that are seen in similar works like Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad and Black Skin, White Mask by Franz Fanon. What do you think? Do any of these political theories seem sound? The Lion King teaches us to face our fears. According to Reddit user, beer in my butt.
Bet you didn't see that one coming, huh?
The Lion King teaches us a rather beautiful lesson on life and acceptance, mainly the need to revisit our past and face the things we fear head on. That is the only way that we'll heal from our emotional suffering. This is seen mainly through the character of Simba, who goes through the motions of guilt because of the loss of his father, something we call survivor's guilt. Simba feels responsible for the loss of his father, and this feeling of guilt is what drives the plot throughout the entire movie.
And if it weren't for you, he'd still be alive.
For starters, Simba deliberately tries to forget the tragic loss of his dad and bury the past. Still, he's not able to erase the memories of Mufasa, let alone the feeling of guilt that he experiences because of his loss.
Nobody knows my sorrow.
Even when Simba is asked to lead the pack, he rejects the offer. Why? Because he feels that Scar is the rightful leader. We see the emotional guilt of his father's passing as a crippling agent which prevents him from advancing in life and becoming a better lion. Because of this guilt, he's stuck in a stasis in which he can neither advance nor regress, and is meant to wallow in his feelings of guilt for the rest of his life.
I'm not the king. Scar is.
However, the turning point happens when he recognizes that he must go back into his past in order to advance, specifically in the climactic ending where he goes to find Scar.
I know what I have to do, but going back means I'll have to face my past.
Apart from the obvious tear-jerking moment that this scene caused, the real lesson that we're supposed to take away from this is that you need to go back into your past and resolve any previous hurt or pain that you may have in order to move forward in life.
Dad, we gotta go home.
As difficult as it may be, you need to remove the band-aids off the emotional scars which you have and expose them so that they can be healed. If not, you'll live a life in which you can't ever progress because you're constantly worried about the past. Kiara will be a bad hunter because her parents were bad. Reddit user Gramper has a very interesting theory on an often overlooked character, Kiara. If anyone had high hopes and expectations for Simba and Nala's daughter, you should probably think again. Chances are, there's a very logical reason why Kiara sucks at hunting. Why? She's a lion. She's gotta have it in her. It's in her DNA after all. Well, yes and no. While Kiara might inherit the instinct to hunt, she isn't so good at it because it's not really in her DNA. In The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, we can see that she struggles with hunting. She couldn't get the final test right. Well, it's all because her parents weren't good hunters.
Simba, who does she remind you of?
If Kiara has no one who can properly guide her on how to hunt, there's no way that she can get it right, no matter how much her instincts try to point her in the right direction. Simba and Nala were horrible hunters, especially Simba. He had never had a proper education as his father passed away when he was young. Simba is a bad hunter because he never got to learn from those who came before him. Therefore, it's believable that, irrespective of a lion's instincts, if he or she isn't taught by good hunters, the chances of continuing the legacy seem dim. In Kiara's case, so dim that her light is barely visible. Simba caused the drought. For those who may not have considered it, Reddit user Spixton has got news for you. Simba probably caused the drought in Pride Rock. Now let's put things into perspective. The past kings of Pride Rock are in the sky. Mufasa specifically communicates with Simba through the clouds.
Remember who you are. You are my son.
For that reason, it's easy to believe that Mufasa, along with the other kings residing in the sky, have control over the weather. Considering that Simba is the rightful king and leader of Pride Rock, the allegiance of the kings who have gone on to the sky resides with him and only him.
Simba's the rightful king.
Therefore, when he leaves Pride Rock, the clouds which bring rain follow him as he is the rightful king. When he returns to Pride Rock, it begins to rain, and the drought has come to an end. For that reason, it's believed that Simba caused the drought. The saddest part is that he doesn't even know it. What a weird and crazy way of looking at the drought that plagued Pride Rock. But what do you think? Do any of these theories seem legit? Do you have any crazy theories about the Lion King that we missed? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. But most importantly, stay wicked.